All right, guys, so today in front of me from Found North, we have their Batch 5. This is their 8-year cask strength whiskey. The mash bill on this one is 73% corn and 27% wheat. Comes in at 116.2 proof. So this Batch 5 was formed around an 8-year-old wheated whiskey that was aged in American oak and then blended with a 21-year corn whiskey that was aged in ex-bourbon barrels and then transferred over to American oak for 8 years. Definitely excited to get in this one. I was a big fan of Found North's prior releases, and then their single barrel was just absolutely amazing that they released. Definitely excited to get into this Batch 5, guys. So without further ado, let's go. All right, guys, so as I stated, this one comes in at 116.2 proof, is aged for 8 years, there are no additives, and it is non-chill filtered. Let's go ahead and get in the nose. This is like cornbread with brown sugar sprinkled on top of it. Cornbread with brown sugar sprinkled on top of it. It is very, very sweet on the nose. I get like this, there's almost like this hazelnut type of note to it a little bit further into the glass. Yeah, there's a lot of like corn. There's a lot of corn sweetness to it. There's also a lot of vanilla sweetness to it. Like I said, it's like a cornbread. There's some brown sugar in there. There's a little bit of like a hazelnut that starts to appear. And really, I'm not getting any ethanol on the nose. And it's like none of the aromas are overly dominating either. I mean, there's a lot of sweetness from that corn, but it's kind of offset by some of that sweetness from that vanilla, a little bit of like that hazelnut, some sweetness from brown sugar. It's a really nice nose, very, very sweet. It's good to get a palate, guys. Cheers. Damn, that is good. Man, that is good. And it's oily. The spices from this like hit everywhere in my mouth. The roof of my mouth, the sides of my cheeks, my gums, all across the palate into the finish. Long lingering finish. It's a long finish. And it just keeps going. Those oils are just so concentrated. There's a lot of vanilla sweetness kind of there on the front of the palate. I do pick up some of that like sweet corn. Definitely some sweet corn there on the mid palate. But then, like, there's the weediness from this, I think, does make an appearance like towards the back of the palate. There's some honey that's kind of in there as well, like in the back of the palate and into the finish. And it's nice because there's no rye in here. So that spiciness, that bite is coming from that 116 proof. But man, it's that proof, it was all over the mouth. All over it. Really, really nice. Yeah, like rich vanilla, some honey there on the back of the palate. Then it kind of like, after it goes down, there's almost like this slight like wintergreen note that starts to appear there down through the finish. It's really good. It's really good. Let's get the second sip, guys. Yeah, so it's like there's a lot of baking spices on this. I think that's a big contribution from that wheated whiskey. But it's like, after that proof dies down, there's like this softness, and that's like softness and oiliness. I feel like that's a big contributor from that wheat. Makes it really soft. But there's a lot of baking spices going on there. So there's got a rich vanilla up at the front, allspice, some nutmeg going on there on the center of the palate. Still some of the sweetness from that corn, but it's not in a bad way. That could be a big contributor from those that oiliness as well. Softness from the wheat, oiliness from some of that corn. But then the back of the palate is like a baked wheat roll with just this glaze of honey put on top of it. Little bit of vanilla that kind of like mixes in there too. The back of the palate, like don't get me wrong, the front of the palate is like really sweet. There's a lot of baking spices and flavors going on there. But the mid to back palate and into the finish is where this one shines. It's really, really good. And the mouthfeel is great. It's a pretty long finish. Medium to long, definitely on the longer side. It's weird too, because like, you know, you definitely get some of the oiliness from that corn whiskey. You get some of the softer, bready notes kind of from that wheated whiskey. And again, it's a blend of, a 21-year-old corn whiskey and an 8-year-old wheated whiskey. So definitely not shy on the age on either one of those. It's really good. Let's get a last sip, guys. Cheers. The sweetness and the oiliness, the baking spices up front. So the mid to back palate and into the finish reminds me of Teddy Grahams, the honey Teddy Grahams that you ate when you were a kid, maybe an adult. That's what it reminds me of. That's exactly what it reminds me of. Almost like that, that rich honey, and then kind of along with, I wouldn't say a bread, but as like a cracker, as a little cookie. That's what it reminds me of, and it's freaking delicious. It's so good. Very, very sweet. Love the baking spices. That kind of offsets the sweetness a little bit. So yeah, again, that sweet vanilla up front, allspice, nutmeg. Middle of the palate, there is a little bit of that corn sweetness that kind of shines through. I think that's a huge contributor to the oiliness of this one. But then the softer side of it, I think, is from that 8-year-old wheated whiskey. It sits on the palate and it just saturates. It just sits all over the sides of the cheeks. The proof died down after the second sip, not even existent on the third sip. Honey Teddy Grahams on the back of the palate, maybe with a little bit of vanilla on top of it. That's how good it is. It's damn good. Fantastic job here by Found North. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to send a big thank you over to the team at Found North for supplying me with the sample here to review on the channel. I'm going to tell you, this is definitely a flavor bomb of a whiskey. Two definitely very unique components to this one. A 21-year-old corn whiskey and an 8-year-old wheated whiskey. A lot of great sweetness and oiliness to it. But then the back of the palate into the finish is where this one shined through for me. Again, that honey Teddy Grahams with like a little bit of vanilla. It's a really, really good pour. It doesn't, you don't get like the age from the pour. Like you can't tell there's a 21-year-old corn whiskey in here. But you can tell because you're not getting a lot of those youthful notes, right? So like, yes, there's a 21-year-old corn whiskey in here, so the corn sweetness, it's not a bad thing, but with it being 73% corn, and the rest of it being a soft wheated whiskey, you're going to get some of that influence in there, but it's not, not in a bad way. It's an absolutely delicious pour. I am going to find a bottle of this batch 5 before they run out. It's a hitter of a pour, an absolutely hitter of a pour. Fantastic stuff here that Found North is doing, guys. So if you're looking for more reviews like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. Till next time, guys, say Dusty.